Four, please, on the pod from Mason City, Iowa, Jared Doerfler. And he is the founder of Hanna Golf, which, if you've been following along on us, especially in the social media sphere, is his new putter company. Jared is the founder of Perfect Putt as well, a newsletter that some of you may be subscribed to. And that's at least where I at first discovered his work. He was working in sales and then also started creating his own golf newsletter on the side. And somehow, as he will explain, that evolved into him creating his own milled putter company. He is the one doing everything himself. He is manufacturing the putters. He is shipping them out to the people. He is the creativity, the creative mind designed this. It is an incredible story of a guy who loves the game of golf, who was becoming involved in the game of golf and decided, you know what, I'm going to follow this bug, this love, and just create my own company and try to sell the best putters that I can to people out there in the golf world. I'm not going to become rich off it. That's at least what he's saying now. But I want to do this. I want to go after this. I want to be entrepreneurial, had the support of his family, has an amazing story inspired by his father, which he'll get into, and created Hanna Golf. So coming up on Eyes on Golf, it's Jared Doerfler. This man is essentially, he might be saving putting right now, is essentially what he's doing. We've got Jared Doerfler with us. And for those who don't know, I mean, I've been following you, Jared, for a bit as I've seen your, in my mind, you're the guy who writes me the informative LinkedIn and Twitter posts that thankfully we have as many Twitter characters or X characters as we can use now. But officially, you're the founder of Perfect Putt and the founder of Hanna Golf. I know I was asking for pronunciation, so I hope I got that as right as I could. Did I get, is that how you describe people? If people ask you what you do, what do you tell them now?
Boy. I tell them I write a little bit about golf and I make some putters and try to sell some putters, I guess. It's not super glamorous, I can tell you that.
It looks glamorous from the outside because, I was just doing some poking around looking at your LinkedIn, and it seems like you worked in urology at one point, and then you ended up going into sales, and now you sell putters and write about golf for a living. So that seems like a pretty, unique transition. So I guess before we get into your putting story, which for those who are tuning in, probably a lot of people are following your putting journey right now that you're sharing on social media as you create Hanna Golf, these new milled putters. I know I said it better there. I nailed the Hanna Golf a little better that time. I know that you're doing all of that in the putting world, but let's go back to your life before golf. What were you doing?
Life before golf. Well, I'll take it back, I guess, to I haven't known
LBG.
I haven't known life without golf. So I'll just take it back to college, I guess. I walked on to a small Division I school in Iowa as a sophomore. I played at an NAIA school my freshman year, and when I walked on, my coach took me to the putting lab, a poor man's putting lab, but it was still pretty good. And he's like, "We need to check out your putter." And so he did that, and I had 3 putts, and he's like, "You're using the wrong putter." I was using a blade putter. And he went to his office, dusted off this old mallet that he got at a PGA championship he played at in the 90s off a tour truck. And I ripped some putts with that, and I putted drastically better in my career. And so when I left, I gave that back to him. And, I should say left. When I graduated, I gave it back to him. It's not mine. So I missed that putter. And every year I would try to find that putter online somewhere, eBay, and I never could. So one cold night in Iowa in the winter, I got bored and I decided to sketch what I thought that putter was. It was 10 years later. Just tried to figure it out and sent it to my brother-in-law. He made it in CAD for me. I had no idea how to do that. Something that I've now taught myself, but Had a buddy make it for me at a machine shop in Texas, and then that's kind of how the putter deal, I guess, accidentally started. Um,
How long ago was that you had that putter remade essentially?
that was January of 2022. So I
Okay.
was I was riding Perfect Putt at the time, and yeah, I was spent a handful of years in medical sales, and then worked for a manufacturing company for about 7 years, and as a VP of sales. So generally, not the best set of skills to come in and try to teach myself how to run a CNC mill and
Maybe.
operate those. Sales guys generally aren't the most technical people in the world, so that's been a challenge. Yeah, I started writing Perfect Putt because I was finishing an MBA course, and instructor just challenged our class to write online. And so I'm like, well, I love golf, I love business. Let's just marry the two together and see what happens. And I had no following online, but I'm very curious about that kind of stuff. And so just started writing and see what happens. So yeah, that's been a fun journey. It's been 3 years, Jeff, for a Perfect Putt so far, which has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'm not. I mean, I think you do an incredible job. There are some people that your contemporaries as well. I would say in the uh, golf business sphere that you all do such a great job, and I think that what you're talking about, having a day job essentially, has also allowed you to go direct on social media with a lot of that writing, which I think, as you understand, is able to make sure that writing spreads faster, easier, share. And that's where, I mean, your post about starting this company, I think, went viral in a lot of golf circles just because it was spit right out there on Twitter and LinkedIn. You know, I knew you as the perfect putt guy, and all of a sudden, now you're a golf businessman. All of a sudden, right now you're, like you said, getting into manufacturing, actually creating this stuff. Now, you also did say in that post that this was originally you intended on opening in February, so you were
Mm.
delayed a few months. So I guess go back to that. You've recreated this putter in 2022, which I'm going to take a guess is the Denver, but I could be wrong. I'm guessing that because it's a unique design on your website.
Yep. No, good
Yeah.
guess. Here's the answer. It's none of them. Um,
Okay. All right.
and
Then take me through how all this happens over the last 2 years.
that putter I actually gamed for a year and a half, the one that I made, but it is so ugly and it is so bad. I had no idea what I was doing when I went through that process, but I love that. I love creating, designing, and then assembling, and I just fell in love with kind of that process. So anyway, um, yeah, I mean, I guess I don't really. I guess word the question for me again.
Now, I'll say this, like, because look, a lot of us, we all have ideas, but we don't execute on them.
Yeah.
So somewhere around this, I'm guessing it's in 2022, you
Yep.
decide I am going to get into manufacturing golf putters. And I would imagine if you said that over Thanksgiving dinner, or you said that to your wife, or you said that to your family, people might have looked to you and said, "What are you talking about?" But somehow you went through this process of acquiring the proper machinery, getting the correct skills, manufacturing. So how do you go about what's step one in creating a putting company?
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't know the entrepreneur bug kind of really hit me. And here's why is my dad was diagnosed with MS in 2012 and he retired last year. And so that kind of hit me that life's way too short. And I've really wanted to start something of my own. And so then I went to the drawing board. I'm like, all right, what are the two things that are important to me? Well, I want to do it in the golf space because I really love the golf industry. The second thing is I want to be able to make it. Like, I don't want to just, that was important to me. I wanted to be able to make it. I wanted to have that relationship with the customer. And so I wrote all these things down of what was in there, and golf putters was one of them. Then I kind of circled back to that project a year prior when I made that putter, and I enjoyed that so much. So then I started to research the putter market, Jeff. And so I'm like, is there enough here to actually go into it? And there's about 2.5 million putters sold every year. It's not a huge market by any means. This is not something that's going to make me rich. It's not a get rich quick scheme by any means, but it's enough to build a nice small business. And I'm really happy with kind of that mindset. And so that's really kind of where it started. I guess it started spring of 23, where I started kind of do some research, and then I talked to a lot of friends and some former coaches and people that are smarter than me in the golf space and kind of got their take on it. And they're like, hey, yeah, there's definitely room in the market for this. Look, at the end of the day, I'm not trying to sell 100,000 putters a year. I'd be thrilled if I get to 10,000 putters a year down the road. So I'm really kind of just honing in and focusing on that small business, and we'll see what goes from there. As far as like CNC mills, like I didn't know anything about anything. Like I've never seen one, let alone run one. So I spent a lot of time on YouTube. I am convinced, Jeff, that you can teach yourself almost anything right now with just a few clicks away with your fingers on the internet. So spent a lot of time on YouTube researching some things, and that's how I ended up with the mills that I have now, and that's how I taught myself.
That's amazing. I mean, I can semi-relate. I'm 31, and I say all these 23-year-olds coming out right now, no TikTok and Instagram Reels and editing abilities that, I learned how to edit 10 years ago. So I'm reteaching myself everything via YouTube right now. But that's for people that understand you're teaching yourself how to mill putters
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube, essentially. And, we've seen the product. For those, that haven't, please look up on social. HANNAGOLF. I mean, these putters are beautiful, crisp, milled by you, I guess by hand would be the wrong way to put it, but you're the one doing the work in Iowa, which, how important is that for you in terms of, I know you've got Nebraska and Iowa ties. How important is it to be this small business that comes out of the Midwest, that comes out of a place like Iowa?
It's extremely important to me. Like I was born in Kansas, but raised in Iowa. My wife and I spent quite a bit of time in Kansas City. So at the end of the day, Iowa's home for us. We don't have a ton of golf companies in Iowa. Actually, Standard Golf, if you've heard of them, they're actually in Iowa. They're essentially like a golf course supplier, like cups and pins and stuff. But we don't have a golf club company in Iowa, and there's probably a reason for that, and it's probably not a positive one, if you will. Talent levels probably not quite the same as other places. Weather is not quite the same as other places, but at the end of the day, I thought it was really important to me to build a golf company in Iowa.
And so you mentioned the two CNC mills. You're working on those daily. I'm imagining this sort of small warehouse by yourself. What's the setting like that you're working in every day?
Yeah, so I started in my garage at my house, and then in February I moved into a small shop. It's about 1,500 square feet, and then I got another CNC mill in March. Yeah, it's essentially a contractor shop. It's exactly what you'd picture: a large overhead door and 1,500 square feet of space in a small office, and it's not a lot, but it's perfect for me.
And a lot of people are going to wonder, how easy was this? The first time you used the CNC mill, did you get a working putter, or how much trial and error did you have to go through before you were able to master this?
I'll just tell you this: like I didn't know like the simple basics, but I thought it was going to be so much. Look, being naive is, I think, sometimes a good thing, and
Sure.
I've been certainly naive through the process. I also love challenges, so I knew I could overcome them, but I was certainly naive. Like I couldn't even put the vise on the table the right way. So what that means is, a CNC mill has a table and your vise holds your part. I didn't even have my vise squared. I didn't even know that was a thing. So, the first 2 weeks, my vise is probably crooked by maybe 10, 20 thousandths. You probably can't see it by the naked eye, but it was probably enough. I didn't even know what parallels were. It's what the part sits in the vise. So the first putter I made, so I started in August. I got my first one done in like October-ish, and it's horrendous.
Hmm.
I mean, it is absolutely horrendously bad. Um, I started to kind of hit a groove in like December, January a little bit. Then I changed up a couple designs, and then got my other mill and taught myself that mill, which was a lot easier since I knew about CNC milling at least enough. So yeah, I mean, what a challenge looking back at that. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever done professionally. Um, Maybe also the dumbest thing I've ever done. But we're only on this rock one time. And if I'm not challenging
Yeah.
myself, then I'm not going to be happy. So while it was really challenging, it's been rewarding as well.
Well, that's where I want to, people might also be curious, was there a time that you almost scrapped it early on, just said, what am I doing here? I feel like to relate to golfers, I feel like a golfer that's just deep in the wilderness. That's not going to be able to get it to where I need to be. Did you ever feel that way?
100%. Okay, machining is a lot like golfing. Okay, like if you're out there grinding and you're putting in the work, but you go to a tournament and you don't get any better, then you keep repeating that process, and you're like, what am I doing? Like the self doubt creeps in, the spotlight effect creeps in, and there were probably a couple of times this late winter, early spring that I would have, if somebody would have called me and said, hey, I got this job, I would have seriously considered it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sitting there thinking to myself, how am I going to compete? How is anyone going to buy my putters? What if no one buys anything? Well, yeah, it was a lonely time. And not only that is like I'm an extrovert and working by myself all day long, and not talking to anybody that was an adjustment for me. So definitely some challenges that I didn't really necessarily see, but and I'm going to have challenges in the future too. They may be different than what I've experienced in the past, but I personally feel that the hard part is over. Like I taught myself how to operate a CNC mill, I taught myself CAD, taught myself CAM, and I feel like I have a basic understanding of that stuff. So I feel like the hard part is over. There will be hard stuff in the future, and we'll have to adjust and adapt to get through those.
My hope is that you had a lot of PGA Tour live on in the background
I did.
while taking care of that. So now a lot of people, you've been in business what about a month now, I believe.
Mhm.
You've been open for taking orders. We're taping this on August 14th. There's 3 putters on the website when people go to them, and I'll explain them in my layman's terms, and then you can explain in your much higher quality terms. What I see is the Amarillo, which is, as the site describes, has the appearance of a mallet, but a little bit more weight. So, there's a little bit more for players that like a little bit of a heavier putter. They're able to get that done. The El Reno is more of a mallet look to it, very similar to the Amarillo, but a mallet look. And then the Denver, which is a face balance putter, essentially looks like a triangle. Now, you can explain to me in much higher quality terms what those 3 putters are, but that's what people will see on the website, all at a price point of $295.
Mhm. Yeah. So here's the first thing: is like each putter is named after cities my grandfather lived in, and like so many people, and he was a World War II vet, and his generation really changed a lot of family trees. And my grandfather was extremely poor growing up, and he worked his tail off to put my dad in a better position. And luckily that's come down. So I thought, my grandfather's very influential with playing golf with me. He started late in life, but a lot of memories in the golf course involve him. So, I wanted to do an ode to him. And so, the El Reno's, I would consider it a traditional mid mallet look. The Amarillo is essentially a double wide blade. And what that take on that double wide blade there, it's not quite as long as you'd see with other brands or other putters from a double wide blade standpoint. It's a little more compact. The width's about that of the mid mallet. And then the Denver is, I went to bed one night. I'm like, I can't, like I want to have something different, and whether it sells or not, I think is sort of irrelevant. Because I can always take it down or do something different in the future. But I wanted something a little bit different. So the Denver is actually it's small and it's a little bit heavier, and so it's triangle with it helps with alignment because it's got 3 sight lines on
Yep.
it. Um, and so I just wanted to do something different that was not out there really in the market. It's got a pretty high MOI for a 303 stainless steel milled putter, and so it's gonna be more forgiving than a lot of different milled putters. But yeah, I mean it's been a journey getting those 3 designs. Now it's like my wife kept reminding me through the process, like the first iPhone doesn't look like the one today. So the designs will continue to get, I think, better. I think they're good right now, but they'll continue to get better. And I'll keep adding designs, and we'll keep adding different features to the products.
Yeah, I want to hang on the Denver here for a second because I was studying it last night. You talk about the three sight lines. I believe the space between each of the sight lines too is the width of a golf ball, if I'm not mistaken, based on what I'm reading here.
Mhm.
So it just and I'm someone that has grabbed a lab putter in a PGA Tour Superstore and thought to myself like, is this where I need to go with things? And I know face balance putters are essentially one of the hot new things in golf right now.
Mhm.
Um, as much as you're being humble about it and saying that you don't know if this is going to sell, you might take it off, it might evolve. Is there also a feeling like this is the trademark, unique product that you can put out there to people?
It could be. I don't want to get over my skis here. It's sold much better than I thought it would sell the first 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Yeah, the two outer, there's three sight lines. The two outer sight lines are the width of a golf ball. I don't want to get too excited, but there somebody pretty important did buy that putter that does play professional golf on the PGA Tour. So we'll see. There's probably very little chance that this person that he plays it, but nonetheless, it caught his eye. So we'll ship that out this week and see what happens. Um, yeah, I mean the Denver. Who knows? It could be. I told my wife, and a couple of my friends, it's either gonna be the best putter I have or the worst. There's no in between. So it's trending better than I anticipated. And yeah, with that face balance there, it's really important for a straight back, straight through, or a slight arc stroke. And so it's a good putter. Like I like the putter. It swings it well from a pendulum standpoint. It's forgiving. I think it lines you up really well. Yeah, it's been that surprised me out of this whole process for sure.
I'm just going to ask this because I'm calling BMW Championship next week. Is the player in the FedEx Cup playoffs?
No.
Okay. All right. So we're going to look out for it in the fall.
Yeah.
And that also, I think you're talking about that from a player feedback standpoint. Like I said, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised to see the Denver selling well because when I look at the website, I go, okay, well, what can I not get somewhere else?
Right.
And that was my reaction to seeing the Denver. What has the reaction been? Because you've talked about already selling more putters than you expected. I'm sure as you produce Perfect Putt, as you're out in Iowa, you're not necessarily on the ground at PGA Tour events. You're not necessarily at the PGA show. You're not necessarily face to face with people. You don't know what sort of reputation, what sort of reach you have in the golf world. Seeing the early sales, what feedback have you gotten? What have your reactions been so far?
Well, my initial reaction is like I'm blown away and very humbled by the support. I'm not trying to be self-deprecating in any means here. I'm just being brutally honest. It's like I thought I would sell 5, maybe 10 putters that first week when I launched, and sold 50, which blew me away. That we sold 50. I also worked. I don't know how many hours. I worked basically every waking hour the first 2 weeks to try to get these putters out the door. I'm just a one man show trying to figure this thing all out by myself here. So, very humbled by the support. The feedback has been, generally very positive. And it motivates me to continue to make these putters better and to make a better product, and also come up with some new designs here in the future. But the golf industry, Jeff, I know you know this, but the golf industry, I didn't know this coming in before I started writing, is very small. It's
Mm-hmm.
also very supportive. Like what we see on social is not what we see from the people that are working in the space.
Yep.
And I'll give you an example. So I need as far as I understand it, my putters they conform within USGA rules, right? But they're sent in. I'm in the process of waiting the feedback, right? And here's a good example of the industry. Like I didn't know how to go about this process, and there's another golf equipment company helping me with this. Like I think that says a lot about the industry and this company. It's that they went out of their way to make a connection with the USGA for me, and they've also 6 months ago gave me a lot of really good information on golf clubs in the space. They don't have to do that, but that's what the industry does, and they're helping. This company is helping me out. And they have no reason to help me out, but they're going out of their way to do so.
I think that what I've learned about the golf industry is because so many people play sports. You were talking about being in sales and manufacturing, medical sales. It's not like, medical sales is not necessarily a hobby for a lot of people. When it comes to golf, this is a sport that people get enjoyment out of. I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before. My brother's working with Tremont Sport & Co. in South Florida, which has become a great small business in the space, a lot with head covers and leather goods. And, they experience definitely a lot of that too, where there's a lot of startups learning from startups, right? And there's a lot of people trying to get into areas of the market in the golf world, which isn't just golf, that in today's modern digital age, I mean, let's be honest, you probably couldn't do this before the internet, right? You
No.
probably couldn't, you never would have built yourself up. You never would have built Perfect Putt up. You never would have built, as a newsletter, you never would have built up your social channels. You wouldn't have been able to put this website in front of people. So you have an opportunity that's very unique nowadays that you wouldn't have from a social perspective. And I think that people, I'll say this, when I took a marketing class in college, it's like a person or a brand. What's the first thing that comes to mind? What's the emotion that comes to mind? When I think of you, I think of uplifting, informative, knows what you're talking about in golf. And I think that that's very important to start a company from, the spot that you're coming from. We talk a little bit about the feedback. Now you talk about people advising you. Who can you share who has advised you that people might know, or who did you learn from? Who did you look from? What company did you look from? What entrepreneur did you look from as you started to create this company?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, I'm a big podcast guy. Anything entrepreneurship and podcasts I'll listen to, any industry. But I'll say this is I generally believe that Karsten Solheim is probably the greatest golf entrepreneur ever. And if you just do some research and read on Carson and what he's done and kind of how he was started so late in life out of a garage as well. And Ping's just an incredible company, very well respected, make great products. And so, take some motivation from Karsten that, he was able to do something, himself, right? And start in a garage. And I think he was in his 50s, maybe 60s when he started Ping. Other than that, it just take a lot of inspiration, motivation from, people that are around me. I'll share, I'm Donnie Dotson from Cary Golf. Donnie's probably the nicest guy and the sharpest guy I've met in the space. I haven't talked to everybody, but I've talked to a lot of people in the golf industry, and I'm not sure there's a better person in golf than Donnie Dotson at Cary, and I've leaned on Donnie heavily. What he's doing at Cary, I think, is really cool. I think it's great for pro golf, and not only that, he's just an incredible human. So he's really helped me out quite a bit.
When you talk about Cary, I believe, right, that's the company that golfers can essentially you can essentially fund golfers trying to make it, or young golfers.
Yep.
Yep. Which is an awesome idea as you're bringing up. I'm doing so Karsten Solheim, people might know as I guess the founder of Ping, and also the namesake for the Solheim Cup. But do you know? I'm sure you know this, but just quick trivia as I'm peeking at something. What essentially put Ping on the map? What was the first model of a Ping club used on the tour? What event? Who used it? The event should make sense when you think about Ping.
Okay, I'm gonna guess. Was it a Masters tournament? Am I wrong?
It was the Phoenix Open, which makes sense, I say, because Ping is based in Phoenix now.
Okay.
Julius Boros used the Answer putter. So it was a putter for Ping that hit the map first that essentially gave it some legitimacy, which also brings up the point you talked about, a player on the PGA Tour making the purchase, trying it out a little bit. Where do you want to see this company go? Who do you want to see using? Is the goal for this to be a pro style putter, or something that amateurs could walk around and, almost be cool within amateur circles?
So I think there's a couple of ways you can go about it. So first goal is definitely not to have tour people playing it on any level, any tour. Not, maybe that's a bad way to state it. I can't pay for that. Mm-hmm. I just I can't pay for people to play my stuff.
Yeah.
I take a lot of inspiration from like what Jason Hyland's done at sub 70, and like what people like Tyson Lamb have done. And Jason Hyland built sub 70 to be a great company, well respected, great service, good products. And what Tyson Lamb's done with creating these incredible basically pieces of art, I think are really cool. I would love to stay in the amateur circle, and if my putters are played elsewhere, that would be fantastic. But that's not really something that's on my mind, just because I can't pay for that. And I know a lot of players don't have necessarily a putter contract. But at the end of the day, I don't know what even that looks like. Like that is so far away in my mind. I would love it, but that's not really a goal. It just seems too far. It just seems too much of a reach. So yeah, I mean, I just really want to make a really good product, and in the US, and I want to have that relationship with the customers.
You talk about how busy you are right now. What's a normal day like for you at the moment?
Basically work from I take my daughters to daycare, so I get my shop around like 8:30, and I work till about 8 or 9 at night.
And when you say work, you're pounding away, milling putters. You've also got to allot time to actually package these things up, ship
Yeah.
them. I'm sure you've got to answer customer service calls. You're emailing. How do you delegate all that?
Well, that's a great question, because like I've looked at my social in like the last 10 days, and I haven't really posted anything because I really haven't had time to sit down and do anything. It's sort of overwhelming. But yeah, I mean, here's the thing about CNC mills. Like, they're awesome because they're essentially automated to a certain extent, right? Like, but to get into that process is actually pretty complex. And so when you set up vices on a table, when you make sure that the parts are square and ready to go, that takes 2-3 hours for me to get going. So yeah, we got the mills running. We got a bead blast, got to paint, got to clean, shaft, grip, cut, grip, and package, and all that good stuff. So it's a little bit of everything.
I mean, that's you're a man of many talents right now. What other products could we see? I know you have golf gloves and you've got a towel out. Is there anything else you have your eye on in terms of creating?
Towels are going to stay because I love those. Golf gloves was a little bit of an ADD thing. I don't know if they've done well. I bought 1,000 golf gloves, and they've done well, and they've sold well. It's just and managing that inventory, and it's such a low margin item that I'm not sure if the juice is worth the squeeze there. What I'm focused on right now is I'm focused on this. I'm focused on lefties, getting those out next, and then I'm focusing
Okay.
on bringing some international markets online. And then yeah, I have a fourth design that's prototype. It's next to me here in my office that I'll start working on that. But we'll probably stick with putters. Like, I don't want to get overextended.
Yeah.
What I've
Mhm.
learned at my previous company, we love launching products, right? Throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. I really want to keep focusing on putters.
Well, I think Scotty Cameron would tell you that you started this podcast saying you're not going to get rich off this company, but Scotty Cameron would say just stick with putters, man. You never know. You could end up being very well off in the putter industry. You mentioned international. Have you gotten like calls from stores in Japan, or is Europe calling? How far has the reach gotten to this point in just a month of being open?
Yeah, so a lot of requests from the UK and Canada, which I think
Okay.
is relatively normal if you look at the Gulf space. Have had Japan requests and Hong Kong requests as well, and that's generally kind of where we're at. Seeing a couple Mexico, but UK and Canada are the two largest requests that I've seen.
Why didn't your wife stop you from doing this?
She's been like my biggest supporter. I don't know why she hasn't stopped me. It's a little scary. It's a little stressful. I'm very fortunate that my wife is such a great supporter. And I when I started this, Jeff, we emptied our bank account, like,
Mhm.
zero, and she's got a good enough job that we can live off of, and she works her tail off, and so we're able to live off her income. Here's the thing: we're having our third kid next Wednesday, and I, you know,
Congrats.
thank you. I don't want to get too into the weeds here, but maternity leave is kind of a boondoggle in this country. Kind of learning about it, like, even though it's our third, she doesn't get paid for 4 weeks, and I'm thinking to myself, how does that work? She works at a hospital and doesn't get paid, and so I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So yeah, going to be a little stressful here in the next few months. Uh, we'll see what happens, but it's all part of the process and all part of the journey.
Your boss isn't going to give you paid paternity leave?
Yeah, no, exactly. I have, yeah,
Well, I mean, a great time to start this company, right? As you're having your third kid. Congrats on on that, Jared, and everything going along. But let me also ask, with that, as you develop this company, ideally, where do you want to see it in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? What's the goal?
yeah. The goal is I want to continue to offer more products, and so to do that, need more CNC mills. So I would love to have a dozen CNC mills. My process much more efficient. Some people, I'm working with some folks on the team, and we're able to create a really good product for I think a fair price in the U.S. And one thing that I'm passionate about is I played at a very small college, and you
What
know,
school was that?
Northern Iowa, and our budget was nothing. There's no NIL there at all. And so what I would love is to go work with some of these colleges, and whether that's a JUCO or that's an NAI or D3, D2 or D1 that's not getting some love. That's important to me. And then also I would love to do some stuff. I know some stuff with some multiple sclerosis stuff that my dad and I kind of have ideas in our brain about. So where I see the company, again, people ask me about this about Perfect Putt, and I don't have a good answer for
Mhm.
that. I just want to keep showing up every day, keep enjoying it, keep growing it, and keep offering good products. But I would hope to have a team of people with some more mills and able to offer better products, or not better, but different products still down the road, different putters.
Ali Farouk Manesh didn't give Northern Iowa, all the NIL money that you could possibly imagine.
Always, yeah, great dude. I think he's at Colorado State now coaching, but yeah,
I think so.
that was a lot. That was a lot of fun when I was in school. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. That's a story in itself. We had a lot of fun when he made that three to kind of kill Kansas at the end.
David Johnson, I believe, too, the running back, went to
Yeah,
Northern
he
Iowa.
did. Yep, good dude.
So I know my three top alumni now. You mentioned your dad. I do want to touch on, obviously, an inspiration to a lot of what you're doing. And I believe you said he retired last year. So how has he? What are his thoughts on the company, on his son? Obviously, honoring him in a lot of ways, but taking a big leap of faith.
Well, I mean, at first he didn't fully understand it. I think that generation is they're more
Less
conservative.
entrepreneurial.
Yeah, more conservative in their thoughts. And he was at his company for over 30 years before he retired, and worked his way up to he was actually the CEO for like the last 10 years. And he's like, loyalty's big for him. And so
Hmm.
he thinks, yeah, I would assume that he thought, like, you need to stay somewhere for 20, 30 years and go from there. And I think he probably had some question marks when I first started, but now he's very supportive. He would help me in any way possible that he could in my shop. He just really can't. He can't really stand up, so he can't really help with bead blast or cleaning or packaging or anything like that. But he does do my books. So he did text me that he's on his way over. He'll be over this morning to help me with my books. And so you know what? He's too in the weeds in the books. He drives me
Are you
crazy.
paying him?
No, I would no. I'm not. He can't get enough. He just wants to come in and talk about business, and it's
Hmm.
good for him because he doesn't have a ton of hobbies because they kind of were taken away from him. So it's good for him. He
Yeah.
comes in 3 4 hours a week. He talks about business, and he just loves business. And so, most of what he says to me is one ear out the other because I'm not concerned about my inventory reconciling correctly right now. I'm worried about getting putters out the door. So yeah, it's been enjoyable to work with him in the last few months since I've started this, and he's been a good guy to lean on.
That's awesome. I love that. Um, love seeing you guys have that ability to connect over this company. Before I let you go, I do want to ask a little bit general. Like we said, Perfect Putt. You've been all over golf business over the last few years. Obviously, a lot of things have happened in
Mm,
professional golf, especially over the last few years. There was also, when COVID happened, there was a big rush in a lot of the golf business industry, and perhaps that has leveled out a bit, although golf is still a very popular sport to play. What are some of your unique perspectives that you have on the golf business sphere right now?
Golf is still doing very well in the States. Now, Europe's a
Mhm.
little bit slower. I just saw that rounds came out. We're, I think, 5% lower in the UK. But we're still up 2% in rounds this year. Now, when you look at the gold standard metric for golf, it's golf rounds. And so we're
Mhm.
still up, we're still growing. Now, there's some concern probably around golf entertainment right now, especially with what Top Golf's going through. And, same venue sales have declined for 4 straight quarters in a row. Um, I have this conflicted view with Top Golf because I think Top Golf is absolutely incredible for the industry. They introduce golf to a lot of people, which I think is really important. From a business standpoint, I think Callaway pumped a ton of cash in there, maybe a little too quickly. And so, they're not doing as well as maybe they'd like to do. Nonetheless, I
Yep.
think golf's in a really good spot. We probably do need to see a little bit of a pullback because we have a problem with supply and demand with golf courses. Green fees are probably a little too high. Tee times are a little too difficult to get, and we're not going to overbuild like we did, 2 decades ago. And so we probably
Mhm.
would be healthy to see a little bit of a pullback. But golf has been very resilient through the pandemic. We did not come down from the bump. It has stayed level.
Yeah, no, I think that's a concise way to put everything. Especially people perhaps need to hear that difference between the U.S. and the U.K. Grouping them separate is probably important. How about from the pro game? Because you mentioned Top Golf, I think it's interesting. I tell people a lot of times Top Golf, and especially I've lived in New York City the past decade. Simulator golf, screen golf continues to grow and continues to introduce people to golf in ways that we haven't seen before. From my perspective, I would love to find ways to convert those people into pro golf fans, and people who are more inclined to want to watch, especially as they get older on the weekends. What are your observations right now in the pro game?
So here's what I'll say: you can call it an opportunity, you can call it a problem. But there's 45 million people that are engaged with golf, whether it's off course or on course, right? So pro golf has this funnel of people, right? Now we need to engage them to watch. So how do we make the product better on TV? How do we make the product more, I guess, palatable on TV? I think these are all things that people are trying to solve, and these people are a lot smarter than me that are trying to solve these problems. Look, I watch generally golf every weekend, but I'm a huge golf nut. I think the divide between the PGA Tour and Live has turned a lot of casual fans, that would normally
Mhm.
tune in the background, and they're probably not tuning in the background anymore. And I think it's hurt ratings a little bit because of that. But I'm optimistic, and I'm confident that golf is going to figure this thing out, and I think ratings will get better in the future. Um, Again, the investment that the PGA Tour has seen come in, I think that group of investors is extremely smart. I think they're going to make golf better to watch on TV. I just think it's that simple. And yeah, I mean, is golf where we want it from a viewership standpoint right now? I think everyone would probably say no, we want it better. But let's give it some time. Let's be optimistic about it, and let's trust the process.
I think the first goal is going to be putting me off the screen, but
I
that's
doubt
a
that.
whole other. Also, one thing that I love is, I grew up in the Northeast in New York, and I tell people all the time, golf can be a very private sport in the Northeast. Obviously, you're talking about 6 months a year. You're talking about a much smaller window of time for people to participate in the sport. I go to Florida. It's a little bit different. There's a lot more public courses. It's open 12 months of the year, different culture. I know Arizona's got its own culture, California, Texas. What is the Iowa, Nebraska, Great Plains, West Midwest sort of golf culture?
It's a blue collar golf culture. And here's what I'll say by that: Iowa is a very rural state. We have 3 million people that live here, a little over. Every town in Iowa, doesn't matter if you're 500 people or 2,000, you have a 9-hole golf course. Every
Mhm.
single town has a golf course. You go drive on 2 Lane Road just for 2 hours and you go through these little towns, you will find a golf course. And those golf courses are busy, and they've been busy for decades. If you go out to men's league, women's league, they're always packed. And so it's a lot of, it's a blue collar golf state. Now we've got some good tracks in the state. Davenport Country Club, Harvester, Cedar Rapids Country Club, Wakanda. We got some good tracks. But golf in general in Iowa is mostly public golf, and it's very blue collar, and it's relatively laid back.
I say that because I think, people, depending on where you are in the United States, you have a different perspective on golf. Those folks that you're talking about in Iowa that can have access to a 9-hole course every week might not relate to the private courses in a lot of parts of this country. And those people just see golf as such an elite sport and not a blue collar sport. So there's a lot of give and take. Where are you close to in Iowa? What's the major city that you're close to?
So I live in Mason City, which is about 25,000 people.
Okay. And is that close to Iowa City? Is that close to Des Moines? Is that close to Davenport? Educate me.
It's 2 hours north of Des Moines.
Okay.
And it's 2 hours south of Minneapolis on I-35.
Okay.
Yep.
So when you're shipping, do you know, are the putters going to Des Moines or are they going to Minneapolis?
Boy, that's a great question. I don't know. Probably Des Moines.
So, I mean but I think that adds to your story about how challenging and difficult and impressive it is for you to get these products out the door. Not just, you are not producing these in, Chicago, out of the Midwest. Obviously you've got, you are sending things to the UK, to Canada, I think in short time, Japan, Korea, Dubai, Norway, wherever they may go, they're going to be coming out of your home in Iowa. Before I let you go, Jared, anything else about Hanna Golf that I'm missing?
Jeff, no, you're not. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me and share the story. And it's been a lot of fun to chat with you.
Listen, I appreciate you taking the time. It's all at Hanna, HANNAGOLFCO, I believe, at least on Twitter, are the social handles. And then you are Doerfler Jared on social, and also Read Perfect Putt is your newsletter. So a lot to digest there. I hope your own fans, Jared, because you have them, enjoyed that pod, and I hope a lot of people were able to get introduced to you and everything that you're doing, especially in the putting space. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. I enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening. Appreciate Jared taking the time to share that incredible story, as we will be watching if Hanna Golf will continue to grow and he teased the 4th putter model that's coming. Wonder what that will be. Maybe some fangs, maybe a bigger mallet, maybe a blade. I honestly have no idea. I didn't pry. I'll be figuring it out with everyone else. We've had I've mentioned this, I think, on the last podcast with Sev Size from Course Maps. I've really enjoyed talking to some entrepreneurs in the golf space and understanding the companies that they're created. Like we talked about, many of these companies could not have been created before the internet, before this level of social media. So it's been awesome to see. A reminder to follow and subscribe at Eyes on Golf, EISONGOLF. I am at Jeff Eisenband, JEFFEISENBAND on all forms of social media. Looking forward to seeing you next time.